you and I have a lot of stuff in common besides Kiss, right? I mean, we kind of covered that in our origin story in the first episode where I mean like we're both into, not just Kiss, but we're in a lot of the same kind of music and we're both into, a lot of the same horror movies and
Comic
comic
books.
books. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, a lot of the same shit. And one of the things that you and I also share is this unabashed, like shameless love of Oreos.
Yes, guilty.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to cut straight to the chase here. Why has there not been Kiss Oreos yet?
There's quite
Like,
literally been Kiss everything. There's never been a
there's
Kiss Oreo.
well, okay, Gene is the one who says everything that can have Kiss on it should have Kiss on it, and we know Gene likes cookies.
Gene
So
loves
why?
himself a cookie.
Yeah. So why has this not been a thing yet? Post Malone got an Oreo. Guy's face looks like the wall of a public bathroom stall, and they gave him a cookie. And now Selena Gomez is having an Oreo come out, and I mean, I'm cool with her. She's funny. I like her on Only Murders in the Building. But no, like a Kiss Oreos is like a slam dunk. They're already black and white, right?
Right,
And
right,
like
right.
okay, and like all the cookies could have, the four circular Kiss icons with the makeup.
Literally
There's
perfect.
four of them, and do another one with a Kiss logo, and it's come on, man. That's a gold idea, don't you think?
Well, this is us putting that out into the universe. There's still
Yes,
time, and
I think so.
come on and dunk me.
Rip and destroy!
Welcome to Rip and Destroy, episode. What are we on? Five already?
This is five. Yep.
Five, yeah, all right. I'm TJ and that's Mike.
Hello.
And today's topic we are going to talk about the farewell tour versus the end of the road tour. Two apparently final tours that taste great together. But before we get into tonight's topic, there is one thing that I wanted to pick up from our last episode on Vegas, because this tends to happen. I've noticed just about every episode we forget to talk about some stuff, and then we're like, "Damn it, I forgot to talk about that." So, one thing that we totally forgot to talk about, and I can't believe we forgot to talk about this when we talked about the Vegas residency, was what we did right across the street from the Hard Rock Hotel, and that was, of course, the Kiss Monster Mini Golf,
Hmm.
which is now it has since moved over to the Rio Hotel, all the way on the other end of the strip, and which also houses Gene's Kiss Museum. But back in 2014, Kiss Monster Mini Golf was in a little strip mall right across the road from the Hard Rock Hotel, and I had gone there once before, and then we went there, when we met up for Vegas, and we didn't golf when we
Actually,
went.
I've been twice, and I've still never golfed at Kiss Mini Golf. But I remember how cool it was when we went in 2014 because they had Eric Carr's DeLorean, and they had a lot of merch there, a lot of Gene's books, and they had all the records. Now they have this at the Rio still too, at the new
Okay,
location, but they had all the vinyl records out. They were all signed. You had records
right.
signed by Mark St. John and Eric Carr. It was really quite cool.
Yeah, that was cool. The first time that I had gone, I did do the golf, and
How'd you do?
honestly, by not great, but honestly, by mini golf standards, I mean, it's cool looking, but it was not a great golf course. Honestly, it wasn't a great mini golf course. Honestly, once you've been to a Pirates Cove, you're pretty much ruined for any other mini golf, anyways. But yeah, the coolest part of it kind of was all the museum stuff. It wasn't the full-fledged museum that it is now, but they had a
Mhm.
ton of memorabilia, like you said, all the signed vinyl and everything. I believe Eric had a Porsche, not a
Was it a Porsche?
DeLorean. It was a
Wasn't it?
Porsche,
Okay,
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it
gotcha.
was the Porsche that the band bought him when he joined the band. So that was pretty cool. And yeah, we just kind of wandered around and looked at all the cool stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and but I remember in the parking lot was the promotional Kiss Mini Golf VW Beetle. You
Yes,
remember that with the
I
with
do.
the big had a big Gene Simmons head molded onto the top?
Yep, it's at the Rio too. It's
Is
not
it
in
okay?
it's not in the museum proper, but when you walk into the hotel, it's in front of the museum. They still have the
Nice. Yeah, it was right in the parking lot at the original location. And I just remember I have a photo of it. I don't know if you want to throw it up. But if you zoom in, there's a little sign in the front windshield that says, "Please do not sit on the tongue," which I'm pretty sure is something that has never come out of Gene Simmons' mouth.
And honestly, not something I'd planned on doing anyways, but I
No,
appreciated the reminder.
yeah, right. So that was the only thing that I think we forgot to talk about in the Vegas episode. Otherwise, I think we covered everything. But I could not let that episode go out into the ether without mentioning Kiss Mini Golf. And I have not visited the second location, but I would very much like to.
Yeah, I want to strongly recommend that you and everybody check it out. Gene's collection is absolutely ridiculous. There's so much really cool stuff,
But is there a
and
copy of Rip and Destroy?
not yet, not yet. There should have.
Man,
I should have left one. And
right?
the
Make
coolest
we
thing
should.
is,
I think we need to make a donation.
I've got an extra copy. So what was so cool about it is I went down there to see Gene's collection and also to visit the Punk Rock Museum. Also worth the trip. Very cool. But when I went to the what's the now the Kiss Mini Golf in the museum, there was literally no one else there. So I had the whole place to myself just to, take my time and go through. Basically, it's like walking through the pages of the history book. It's really, you can throw on Gene's boots, you can get pictures taken. There's all the costumes, the instruments, the basses, the merch and whatnot. So,
Do
and
they
the
still
coolest
have? Oh, go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, and the coolest part is when you first walk in, I remember I texted you right away with a picture of all the gold and platinum records that are set up.
Hmm.
It's absolutely amazing. Definitely worth a trip.
Do they still have the Love Gun Wedding Chapel?
They do.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And do they still have the Elder Door?
Yes. As a
Nice.
matter,
Okay. Well, they kept all the goofy stuff then.
yep. And of course I threw up the hand and took the
Yeah, yeah.
selfie and I
That's
got a
right. I think
smile.
you did. So, yeah, I think you sent me that. Yeah, you should throw that up here if you still have it.
There's that picture, which is funny because we also have good friends whose front door looks a lot like that. I think I sent you a picture of my hand in front of that one as
Oh
well.
yeah. Awesome.
Definitely worth the trip. So that was us comparing and contrasting our 2014 trip to the Kiss Mini Golf and then my trip from a couple years ago. Just like we're going to compare and contrast the two farewell tours, the farewell tour and the I mean it this time tour. Or so the farewell tour started off March 11th, 2000 in Phoenix, Arizona. And I don't really know where to say the tour ended. It's got had a couple different endings along the way. There was October 7th, 2000 in North Charleston, which was the last US show and also Peter's last show before they went to Japan and Australia. And then April 13th, 2001, Gold Coast, Australia was Ace's last show, kind of considered to be the last show of that tour. And then the end of the road tour was announced on September 19th, 2018 on America's Got Talent. First show was January 31st, 2019 at Rogers Arena in Vancouver, BC. And then that tour wrapped up December 2nd, 2023 at Madison Square Garden. So we thought it'd be fun to kind of do a little Pepsi challenge, break it up into a couple different pieces, compare the openers, the staging, the set list, and just give some general thoughts on both of those shows.
Yeah, according to the My Kiss Alive Forever book, I'm just looking at it here. Yeah, April 13th, 2001 was the last, I think, official kind of date of the farewell tour. There was a date scheduled for October 21st, 2001 in Washington, D.C. That was canceled. And then there was one show in March 6th, 2002 in Jamaica, which was that private gig that they did.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
What,
Otherwise,
what
yeah, it pretty much ended in Australia. The Japan dates were before that. So, yeah.
Now the show in Jamaica, was that the first one that Tommy played in full costume?
It may have been.
And I think there was one
Yes.
show earlier in the tour where Tommy was all suited up and ready to go, and they flew Ace in on a helicopter at the last minute. And I think
Yeah.
that's when he said like, "Hey, Curly," when he walked by
Yeah.
him on
Yeah. Something like
the
that.
way to the
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah. Yeah. The Jamaica show was Tommy's first full-on gig. Yep.
Very cool. I'd love to see an off the soundboard of that one. That's a
Oh
historic
yeah.
show. So right on. Well, let's start with openers. Openers for the farewell tour on my end were Skid Row and Ted Nugent. We kind of touched on that before, and then
Yep. Same.
openers for the end of the road tour were not, well, it was not David Lee Roth. It was David Garibaldi, the painter guy.
Yeah.
So did you have a preference between the two?
Yeah, I prefer the painter, to be honest.
Same.
And I've got some stuff to say about him when we get to that point. But yeah, I think we walked in when we got to Marcus Amphitheater. So let's mention here. So my date on the farewell tour was May 19th, 2000 in Milwaukee at the Marcus Amphitheater. Attendance was 17,172 out of a capacity of 22,828. Um, and I think we wandered in mid Skid Row, so we saw some
Yeah.
of them. And then we endured the Nuge for the second time in my life. It also occurred to me that we have bagged on Ted Nugent more than we bagged on Kiss in
A
this
little bit.
podcast, so
Yeah. He gave
whatever.
us more to work with in all fairness, but yeah.
That's kind of true, yeah. So far, he is. Um, First thing I remember about Milwaukee was that it was cold. It was, I mean, being May 19th. Um, so what you have to understand is that here in Wisconsin, um, it doesn't get reliably warm until June. Okay, like winter can happen all the way up through May. Like May usually gets pretty nice, but there's always like at least a week in May where it's like cold and miserable and like 30 degrees or something. And it's usually right around then. And as a matter of fact, we just got over that last week here as we record this on May 24th of 2025. Last week was like the weird cold week in May. The week before that, it was like 80 degrees. And then we go through the cold snap and now it should be pretty nice from here on out. But I think this show on May 19th of 2000 happened right around that time, and it was only about 50 degrees in Milwaukee. And you would think that being in the middle of 17,000 people and a Kiss show would warm things up, but it was a little nipply out there
It
at
occurs to
the
me,
amphitheater.
all the times I've seen Kiss, I've never seen them outside. They did a lot of outdoor shows not too far from here in Ridgefield, but they were always co-headlining shows with Def Leppard or Poison or bands I didn't necessarily want to sit through. So I think all the 8 or 9 shows I've seen have all been inside.
Yeah, actually, now that I think of it, there was that one, and then I saw them at Rockfest in Oshkosh in I'd have to look that one up. It was maybe 2011 or something
Hmm.
like that, and that was outside. That was, one of these days we're probably going to do an episode on all the other shows that we've seen, like not the ones, we'll kind of mop up all the rest of the shows that we've seen, and that was definitely a show that I have some things to say about too. But we'll get right back to the farewell tour here. Yeah, so it was called Skid Row, Ted Nugent. Um, Here's the thing um, about that show is that I don't remember a whole lot about it.
The farewell
Like,
show? Really?
yeah, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
really remember a whole lot about it. And honestly, that's probably like one of the worst things you can say about a Kiss show is that I don't remember it, and I because and now obviously I've seen Kiss a nice even 10 times,
Mm.
and I there's people out there who have seen them hundreds, if not thousands of times, and I'm sure they don't remember every detail of every show. But, having seen them only 10, you'd think I'd probably remember, you know, a good chunk of most of the shows. And I don't remember a ton about this show. It was, uh, I mean, I think to our point that we're going to end up making, was this kind of unremarkable.
I think that's the perfect word for it. I saw the show at the Rose Garden Arena in Portland, Oregon. It's now the Moda Center on July 24th, 2000. And it was the only Kiss show that I took my wife to. And I built it up to be, just a religious experience. And she kind of walked away thinking, really? And she also had a hilarious question about the song Beth. She's like, why do women like this song? Like when you look at the lyrics.
Right,
But and it started this long-standing tradition of when I take her to see my favorite band, it's always probably the worst show I've ever seen from that band, be it,
right,
Kiss or Bad Brains or something. It's an ongoing adventure for us. But yeah, I think underwhelming is the perfect way to describe it. To me, it just really seemed from top to bottom really paint by numbers.
right.
I made the mistake of getting there early. At the time, I wanted to see every band at every show, and that meant sitting through Skid Row and then Ted Nugent. And then it just seemed like it was just fill in the blanks. Everything about it. It didn't seem like they were having fun. They weren't enjoying themselves. The set list, and Paul talks about this in his book and has brought it up in a lot of interviews that I think even went so far at one point to say, with this tour, we just needed to put Kiss out of their misery. And it really felt like it. It just, even though there were some cool things about it, I really dug the staging, to be honest. I like the costumes, the 76 era costumes. I thought the staging was kind of a cool hybrid between, 96 and 78. You kind of had the lights on the side. You had two logos with a video screen in the middle, which I thought was really kind of striking and very cool.
Mhm.
But I remember just kind of watching it and waiting for it to end.
Yeah, and I don't, a lot has been said about how they were playing on that tour. I don't really remember them being especially bad as far as like how the band sounded, but yeah, it definitely it was. And no, I attributed some of this to the fact that I didn't have great seats for this show. We were a few sections up, so we were pretty far back. But I, I I I guess one thing I do remember is yeah, just kind of watching it and being like, why am I not more hyped up?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I
Like
think
I'm at a Kiss show, just like and just what 4 years prior, I was in Milwaukee losing my mind, because Kiss was, and now here I am. I get to see Kiss again, the original four guys in Kiss, something I had been wanting to do my whole life. And that point was what? That was probably the fourth time I had seen all four because I saw a Psycho Circus show too. Um, so that was probably the fourth time I'd seen the original lineup, and I'm like, man, why am I not getting into this more? And I
yeah,
do think that I just think it was kind of maybe the overall energy of the band. Like they
right.
weren't, like you said, they were kind of just going through the motions. It was a little paint by number. There were a couple of cool things about the set list. I do think. I mean, I enjoyed seeing like Heaven's on Fire and
Mhm.
some of those later era songs being played with Pete and Ace. Even though I'm not a huge fan of watching Lick It Up live. Again, it was interesting seeing those guys do that. I know they did 2000 Man on that tour,
Yep.
and that was pretty cool. But yeah, other than that, um, I remember in the section in front of us, there was a guy like kind of he was like who had like turned around. He was like going like this, like trying to get everybody to like get up and like lose their minds or whatever. And I remember thinking, nah, I'm good. I'm, I sat. I mean, I'm sitting
Oh,
through a Kiss
really?
show. Yeah, dude.
Wow.
So pretty
Well,
much everybody in our section kind of was, and so yeah, it just I'm not mad that I went. I'm not, I didn't regret going by any means, but it did not have the impact that I think a Kiss show should have.
it was more for me. It was more going to kind of pay your respects because you felt like you should. And it's funny you mentioned not having a great seat. I think everybody in Portland had a good seat because you just quoted me the number. There was about 6,000 tickets sold for an arena that can hold up to 24,000. But I think it was the way they configured the staging. There was room for about 21,000. Are there notes in the book about the Portland show?
No, no notes especially other than the no, this is according to this book, so I'm assuming it's right, but don't shoot the messenger if it's wrong. But yeah, according to this, the Portland Rose Garden show, uh, the Rose Garden had a capacity of 21,000, but the attendance was only 6,667.
Wow. I do remember for that show, and then when I saw them in the same venue in 2008, they had the 300 section curtained off. And then even with that, there was no lines. You could go to the restaurant, you could get yourself a shirt and make it back in time for Shock Me. So no problem there.
Yeah, it looks like they may have changed up the set list a little bit between our two shows. I'm just kind of doing a quick rundown here, and I'm not seeing a huge difference. Looks like the only change in the set list was there was no Peter Criss drum solo. Looks like they cut out his drum solo after July 13th.
Really.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't surprise me because I remember when one of the things that stood out to me about the show in Portland was I was comparing that with the last time I'd saw them, which was on the reunion tour in '96, and Pete's playing was just night and day. He could tell he was barely tapping them in 2000. It was kind of hard to watch.
Yeah, I remember a lot of people talking online too about how he was playing. And
Mhm.
like I said, I don't really remember him playing especially poorly. I thought, the band sounded fine, but yeah, I think it really shows how, you know, whatever was going on within the band and whatever energy they had on stage was really transferring to the audience, which, wasn't a lot.
Right, right. Yeah, and I'd mentioned this before, but it didn't make a lot of sense to me until I read Paul's book and he kind of unpacked what they were going through backstage and you could tell
Right.
in ways that, other shows you couldn't. You could just tell they were having a good time and enjoying it. If you were to compare and contrast the stages from the farewell tour and the end of the road tour, what was your preference?
Um, I mean, the end of the road tour sure had a whole lot more going on. Like you mentioned, I did like the two Kiss logos. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, you know what? I got to give it to End of the Road, and we'll talk about why. once we get there,
Okay.
and um, and it wasn't the pods,
Right on.
something else entirely. I do have one. I mean, I don't really have much else to say about about the farewell tour. Do you?
I really don't. I really don't.
Okay.
I'm glad I went. But that said, if I had to, and maybe at some point in the future we'll do this, if I had to list out all the shows, from best to least best, that would be the bottom rung for me as far as Kiss shows, all eras, all years. That'd be it.
Yeah. Yeah. I do the only other thing I want to bring up was in the Kiss Alive book, Kiss Alive Forever book, there is actually a really lengthy and interesting story about the Milwaukee show. If I may.
Please.
Okay. We're so civilized. That's what Clive Barker said.
Very civilized young man. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a quote. The story comes from a gentleman by the name of Bob Brigham. It says Bob Brigham of Nocturne. Now, I'm not exactly sure what Nocturne is, if it's a the road crew, like the local crew, the rigging, lighting. I don't know what Nocturne is, but they have something to do with the staging. Okay,
Yep.
so Bob Brigham of Nocturne said, "Quote: We were experiencing power problems at the venue. During Kiss's show, the video screen was turning on and off. We're back there trying to get it running, but everything we tried wasn't working because we were getting power spikes from the building. There was a processor on the LED screen with a surge protector so that when you have a drop off in power, it clips and shuts itself off. When it feels power return, it turns back on. The end result is that the screen flickers and turns off." Now, I don't remember this. Aside, I don't remember this happening.
Okay.
I don't remember. Again, I don't remember much of the show. I don't remember if there was a video screen. I don't remember if it was having problems. I really don't remember. Um, uh, After the show, Doc goes nuclear. He fires me and fires Nocturne. I told him that there's always a logical answer to everything. He told me that he was docking us $115,000 for this and fuck you and so on. It turns out that it was just a bad power source in Milwaukee. What made the Milwaukee show more interesting was that because Milwaukee is so close, Gene was driven up from Chicago in a town car. I was privileged to drive up with Gene. After the mishap, I had to drive back from Milwaukee in the car with Gene, a guest of his, and the tour driver Paco Zimmer. Now they are waiting on a town car for 25 minutes for me to get out of my meeting with Doc. I get in the car and he says, "Mr. Brigham, I'm going to make a statement. Then you're going to respond to my statement. I'll go first. Tonight it was 50 degrees. I froze my ass off out there. 20,000 fans did not get to see us do our show. I realized that all the cool stuff I did, no one responded to it. Do you know why, Mr. Brigham?" I said, "Yes, Gene, because nobody saw it." "Yes, that's the correct answer. Nobody saw all my cool shit, thus they didn't go nuts. What do you have to say?" "Well, we still don't have answers as to what went wrong. We're bringing in more parts, and I guarantee that we are going to have something in place that ensures that this will not happen again. I am sorry your show was fucked, and I'm sorry we're a part of it." Right answer. Now let's talk about women. It goes on. As we were driving back down to I-94 to Chicago, Gene got the munchies. We stopped at this little gas station, and I started talking to this rough and tumble trucker type guy with a Kiss hat on. I said, "Did you go to the show tonight?" He said, "Oh, yeah, that's my 29th Kiss show." I asked him, "What'd you think of the show?" He said, "I've never seen the band better. That's the best Kiss show I've ever seen." "Really? Would you do me a favor? I'm traveling with a friend of mine, and he's kind of having a bad night. Would you go over and tell him how much you liked it?" So he walks over and he goes, "Hey, bud, were you at the show tonight?" Gene says, "Yes, I was there. You might say that." "Well, that's the best Kiss show I've ever seen in my life. I loved it." Gene, "Really? You really enjoyed it?" The guy began stuttering. "Wait a minute." Gene ended up signing 10 autographs for him and his family, and when got back in the car, all was forgiven. Another casualty of mechanical malfunction was Paul's flying rig, which also did not work at this gig.
Hmm. I keep
So I
going
guess
back.
the most remarkable thing about the Milwaukee show happened behind the scenes.
I keep going back to the idea of Doc just randomly throwing out 115,000. Like,
Yeah, where did he get that figure? Like, or did he have his little calculator and go, "I'm docking you 115 grand"?
oh, that's fun. That's
Yeah, that
fun.
was interesting. And did you buy a t-shirt?
Nothing. No, no shirt, no book that tour, no merch at all.
Yeah, I didn't
You?
buy a book. I didn't buy the shirt. I didn't buy a shirt. at the show. However, some years ago, um, they had shirts from that tour on Kiss Army Warehouse,
Okay.
which I think Peter Arquette runs that site, I believe. I don't know, but it's I don't know that it's an official Kiss site, but it's official Kiss merch. I think it's a lot of overstock and stuff. And I did get the shirt, which has the Alive 4,
Nice.
what was then going to be the Alive 4 and turned out to be a Live Millennium concert graphic on the front. And on the back, it does say it is the Milwaukee shirt. The Kiss Rocks Milwaukee. I was there. Um, and it's kind of cool because it's got all of the dates they've ever played Milwaukee
Oh, look at that.
on the back.
Yeah.
And then at the bottom, it says May 19th, 2000. And what's funny is that um, on this shirt, it says January 7th, 1988, Mecca Auditorium.
Hmm.
Okay. And whoever was typing out the shirt must have gotten his wires crossed because on the bottom there is in larger print is the show that the shirt came from. It says May 19th, 2000, Macus Amphitheater. It's supposed to be
Macus.
Marcus. And I'm like,
Right.
did you get your wires crossed when you saw the Mecca and Macca and it was 3:30 in the morning and you were trying to crank these shirts out? I don't know. But anyways, this was $5 for an official tour shirt on Kiss Army Warehouse. So, couldn't go wrong with that.
And it's a cool shirt too. Now, I'm
It
I'm
is.
usually not crazy about shirts that have really huge graphics on the front, which is why I didn't buy an End of the Road shirt, but I like that one. Speaking of, it looks good on you though, of course.
Thanks. Thanks, boss.
Speaking of End of the Road,
Speaking of the end of the road,
so
let's speak of the end of the road.
yes, please. I things I that stood out to me about that one specifically. I really dug the ambitious staging. I liked for the first time being able to see Sam the Serpent.
There it is.
Like the farewell tour, also had the Kiss Army flags, and I like those
I
a
love
lot.
those.
Had the
Yeah, those go
st
all the way back to the Destroyer tour, I think.
Yep.
Um, they did those way back then, and yeah, I love seeing those, the two big flags on the side. And yes, Sam the Serpent is the reason that I would pick the end of the road stage over the farewell stage. Matter of fact, I think I he made that stage. I mean, I'd pick the end of the road stage over anything since Love Gun or Alive 2, just because of Sam, because that was the last time he showed up. It was great to see Sam again.
No, there's one thing about the stage I did not like. I'll give like my favorite thing about it and my least favorite thing. My favorite thing about it was actually the pods. More specifically, the pods during God of Thunder was one of the be all end all coolest Kiss moments ever. I thought with all the faces, it just felt like you're in the middle of a Universal horror film. I loved it. What I didn't like, and what's kind of bothered me the last few times I've seen them, is the idea of the iconic Kiss light bulb logo on a video screen as opposed to just being the sign with the lights.
Oh, well, see, I love that though.
Tell
And
me
they
why.
had because you could use a video screen for a high definition Kiss logo that's like animated. It's got their faces in it. They've got you could have it like perfect. You could have the outlines. You could do anything you want with it. And they opted to use that video screen to make us a logo that looked like it came out of 1977.
Right, right.
That's cool. Because at least then you get a Kiss concert with an old school light bulb looking logo. Yeah, it wasn't real, but I mean, come on. I'm glad that they went there.
I get it. I get it. I like the costumes for both tours. I love that they pretty much recreated the 76 costumes for the farewell tour. For this one, they were the new costumes, but you had Tommy repurposing Ace's 1974 pizza, what we always call it, the pizza box.
We did call it the pizza box.
It was like an upscaled, upcycled version of the 74 pizza box, which I thought was really cool.
It's a weird amalgamation of like the 74 pizza box and um but it's kind of got like the little shoulder pieces from like the 76 Destroyer, but then it's got like the diamond and the big V shape
Yes,
of
yeah,
the Dynasty costume, which I believe Ace described as a V shape. This is for his plumber costume. Yeah, it was kind of like a weird mashup of a lot of different stuff. I personally wasn't sure that it worked real well, also because it looked real stiff.
right. Oh, one thing that was great for my show was it was really very easy for me to avoid spoilers for this one because I saw the second show of the whole tour. They did the
Yeah.
first one in Vancouver, and then I think I had to wait one day and just make sure I didn't hop onto Blabbermouth or anything, and basically see the whole show with no warnings. Now, one of the downsides to that though was I'm gullible. I'm a total mark. I really bought into the whole marketing premise of this is going to be something completely new, something that you've never seen before at a Kiss show. So I was pretty excited about that. And then sure enough, curtain drop, Detroit, shout it out loud. I'm like, ah, help me out here. This is feeling a little bit familiar, albeit on a
Yeah.
brand new stage. And unfortunately, one of the things we did not get in Portland that I'm curious to know if your show had it was the cherry pickers at the end. I don't know if the arena just didn't accommodate it or what, but Gene and Tommy didn't come out on the big cherry pickers at the end. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, they were probably having some kind of production issue too, because they let everybody into the Modus Center, but not into where the staging was. So they had thousands and thousands of people stuck in the hallways, just shoulder to shoulder, scrunched up. And I think for the better part of maybe 30, 40 minutes, and that's when I, bought shirts, bought a program. I think I picked up a program for you. And but then we just had to wait there for like 40 minutes while they figured out whatever. I don't know if there was a issue with the easel for the painter or what the deal what the deal was, but it took a while to get in there.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Kiss Alive Forever book only goes up through the farewell tour, so I do not have notes um, on what may have happened in Portland. I think you also got to witness firsthand um, uh, proof that Paul was using backing tracks at that show.
Yeah, that bugged me. That's one of the things that really bugged me. There is once or twice it was pretty obvious, and that kind of takes me out of it. Honestly, I'd rather see somebody sing very, very poorly than not sing live. So that kind of took me out of the moment a little
Do
bit.
you remember what? Do you remember what it was? Wasn't it just like he turned away from the mic, but he was still singing or something? I'm
Yep.
pretty sure it went semi-viral on
Yeah.
online. I think a clip of that happened, and I was like, "Oh shit, Mike saw that."
Yeah, and I'll throw up a picture right here where my seats were. I was right on the side, close enough to see it firsthand. One of the cool things too is seeing the show so early in the tour, you kind of see the original idea for the set list before it changes. And I think that's why I saw Hide Your Heart. I'm not sure how many people did, but I don't think that made it to your show on the end of
No,
the
it
road.
didn't. I think they replaced it with Calling Dr. Love, which I was perfectly happy about because that's in
And
my top three.
and did you go to the show in when they came back on that tour in 2022?
I did not.
Okay. So
No.
on
So the show that I saw on March 1st, 2019 was the last time that I saw Kiss.
Okay. So yeah, when they came back in 2022, they added Tears Are Falling and I Was Made for Loving You and got rid of Let Me Go Rock and Roll, which nobody missed. So
Hey, wait a minute. I'm sticking up for that song now.
you already
No,
have.
but no, they played I Was Made for Loving You when I saw them.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, they did
Yeah.
because all the pods had disco balls and shit on them.
Right, right.
That was actually pretty cool. So,
And I got one more picture to share, because but I don't know why, but this bothered me, especially considering the fact that we all stood there in the hallway for 45 minutes together. But not counting the band or the vendors or the pretzel guy, there was 23,999 people there, all of which had the perfect opportunity to tell me that they dug my Elder t-shirt, and not one of them did it. Not one. So I just sat there in this super cool ass Elder t-shirt, and not one person said, "Hey man, nice shirt."
what a bunch
So
of posers,
honestly,
man. Did you buy tickets right away when they went on sale?
I did not. I didn't buy tickets right away for the farewell tour. As a matter of fact, I think I got them pretty close to the show. I wasn't super excited about that one. For End of the Road, yeah, I got those as soon as they went on sale.
Okay, because I didn't get the end of the road tickets right away. I actually kind of wasn't sure that I was going to go. I wanted to go, but I think maybe it was just a little too rich for my blood at the time or something. I don't really remember exactly why I didn't. Um, but I remembered that I waited in the hopes that it would get to be about the week of the show and tickets would get cheap because that happens sometimes.
Hmm.
And my waiting paid off. I don't remember. I don't remember exactly how much tickets were supposed to be versus how much I paid. But the bottom line is I wound up at the 10th row and I know they were affordable. So, so that was cool. My little gamble paid off, and not only did my gamble pay off, but I wound up sitting right next to my buddy Mike, who now this is not you, and this is not the same Mike that was the
There's
promo
lots
guy
of
from
us.
the. I don't know why so many Kiss fans are named Mike. Maybe I'll have to ask Mike Brandvold from Three Sides. I don't know what the deal is with all you Mikes, but
It's a
this is
generational thing because every classroom I was in growing up, there was at least three or four mics. True story.
yeah. But anyways, I ended up sitting like directly next to a buddy of mine who um is a classic rock fan. I run into this guy at local shows all the time, and lo and behold, I wound up sitting, in a 20,000 seat arena right next to him. So that was cool. So shout out Mike. Um, and it was very cool being super close, 10th row. And then we had David Garibaldi.
You have thoughts. Tell me your
I have
thoughts.
thoughts. Now, look, it was cool. I didn't mind it. Being an artist myself, I did not mind it. I don't mind like the performance painting. I thought he was good. But I want to say something that I have not heard anybody on any Kiss podcast or any Kiss forum talk about regarding David Garibaldi, and that's the name Denny Dent. There was a guy named Denny Dent who did this exact same shit back in the 80s. Okay. He did the live painting. It was real animated. He would like grab like handfuls of paint and slop them on a
Mhm.
black canvas. And if you watch stuff of David Garibaldi, who, by the way, I've heard of this guy. I heard of this guy back in Vegas at one point or another. One of the times I had been in Vegas, I'd seen on like the hotel TV thing that shows like what happened, like what
Yep.
shows you can see in Vegas and shit. I saw this Garibaldi guy doing his live painting thing, and I'm like, he's just doing Denny Dent. So you can go on YouTube and you can look up pictures, video of Denny Dent from like the 80s and the 90s, was back when he was doing this same thing. Okay. This Garibaldi also does the upside down Jimi Hendrix. Like he does a
Yeah,
painting and
yeah,
you
yeah.
don't know what it is and he turns it upside down. Denny Dent did that first. Okay. So shout out Denny Dent. David, you're good, but somebody else did it first. Okay. I just wanted to point that out. Um,
It
but
stood
I mean,
out.
I thought it was actually entertaining because look, I'd rather sit through Garibaldi than
Say
most
it.
of.
Say it. Go ahead, say it.
I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it. It's low hanging fruit at this point. I would rather see David Garibaldi than a lot of the opening bands actually that I've seen for Kiss,
I don't remember
including Ted Nugent.
I don't remember who it was that opened the show I saw in Eugene in 2016. I think it was a contestant for one of those vocal competition shows. I don't know. It wasn't. I would have taken the Painter over that one or Skid Row, for example. I thought it was
Right.
interesting that they were picking an opening act based on Paul's hobbies. Paul obviously a painter, so they took a painter on the road.
Do you
Better
think
than
that's what it was? Maybe, I guess.
I
Otherwise,
assumed. I assumed it's either
yeah.
that or somebody making Brussels sprouts.
Right.
But it
I'll
wasn't
still take
until
the painter.
agreed, agreed.
Fuck Brussels sprouts.
That said, if given a choice between Brussels sprouts, a painter, or David Lee Roth, I thought that the choice of David Lee Roth to do the second leg of that tour was fantastic. And I was super excited to see that show, but it got canceled, obviously, because of pandemic.
All right, look. You know, no disrespect to Diamond Dave, man. I love Van Halen from 1977 to 1984, and also Different Kind of Truth was a really good album. But have you heard him live
I,
lately?
well, the last show, the one that he just did with the four backup singers, I thought was fun. And
Oh, I
I
didn't I
would,
didn't say anything about that, but I heard that live in Japan, the Van Halen live in Japan album that they
yeah.
did after Different Kind of Truth. I,
That
I,
one could have used a hug. They could have used a little post-production, if you will.
if by post-production you mean a re-recording of the vocals with David Lee Roth beamed in from 1978, yeah,
Yeah, more than anything, I'd like to be able to say I saw Diamond Dave. I never have.
that would be
Yeah,
cool. Yeah.
yeah. So, bottom line, if you had to pick one more to relive, I think it's pretty obvious at this point which one it would be, but check a box. Which one?
Oh yeah, for sure. End of the road. Yeah.
Same.
I had a great time at that show, an awesome time. They sounded great. They played great. Um, Honestly, going into it, pretty much knowing that Paul was using backing tracks, it bothered me a whole lot less than I thought it would. I just, I mean, once you're caught up in the energy of the show, I didn't care.
Hmm.
I really didn't care. I was having a great time. But I thought everything went off pretty well. There's no video screen mishaps. Paul didn't get stuck on his flying rig. Yeah, it was an awesome show. I had a super good time. I bought the t-shirt. I did buy the unfortunately this is well not unfortunately because I like this t-shirt, but this is the one with all of the tour dates on the back. They did have show specific city specific shirts for that tour. The Milwaukee one was sold out, honestly, by the time I oh what are you digging out?
Oh,
Oh,
this is the one
oh, the
thing I
book.
did get. It was the tour book, and
Yes.
if memory serves, there was two different versions. This was, seeing the second show of the tour. This is the early version. It's a great tour book if you can get your hands on one.
Yeah.
And going back to the way you described Kiss as being shiny, when you first saw him on the reunion tour,
Sparkly, yeah.
throughout this book, there's a lot of there's a liberal use of shiny, sparkly
Of
silver.
foil paper,
It's a
yes.
great
Yeah, a
book if
lot
you
of
can
it
get
is
a hold of
printed
it.
on foil. It is a great book, yes. And that was so as I said, I wasn't sure that I was going to be going to the end of the road tour. And that was why I had you pick me up one of the books.
Right. I'm
Yep,
glad you
I
made
had
it.
you.
Glad you made it. It was a
Yeah,
good
me
show.
too. Yeah, I am too. Um, so I'm just going through my notes here, but yeah, um I had a great time. Sam the Serpent was awesome. Tried to get some good pictures of him. Paul's vocals didn't bother me. Um, bought the shirt. You bought me the tour book. Yeah, that's pretty much I left very happy and very tired. And I had a really great experience until my drive home. I don't know if you remember that story.
I don't. What happened? I
So,
know
okay, it
you're
was
not a big fan of driving to Milwaukee ever, so
no, that's I'm kind of over that. GPS has really changed things. But no, so we're talking March 1st, 2019. As I mentioned earlier in the show, the weather is very unpredictable here in Wisconsin. And it was a snowy night on March 1st. Well, at the time I was driving home, by that point it was March 2nd. It was the middle of the night. And it was a snowy night. It wasn't a snowstorm or anything, but there was about a half an inch or so on the highway. And about 30 miles from home, I wasn't really speeding, but I probably should have been going a little slower. And I maybe should have had my truck in four-wheel drive. But about 30 miles from home, I lost control and I
mm,
skidded off, spun around a couple times. Luckily, there was nobody near me, and
oh,
I skidded off the road and I wound up in a ditch and stayed there till I got pulled out at about 5:30 in the morning. So
unreal. I don't
you know that
remember
story.
that. I
Really?
forgot. I totally forgot. I totally
No?
forgot.
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, that was how my night ended, and that was an unfortunate coda to an otherwise wonderful evening was hanging out in a ditch. So God
Wow.
damn it, drive slow in the snow. Okay. If you take nothing else away from this podcast tonight, you watch your ass when you're driving in the snow, all right? Some of you have never spent the night in a ditch and it shows.
Wow. In Milwaukee, no less. Yikes.
No, it was in Oshkosh.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I said it was only 30 miles from home. So I mean it was in Oshkosh, so whatever. I
Well,
eventually got pulled out. But
this wasn't ending up in a ditch, but I do remember when Nikki and I were leaving the farewell show in 2000. I got in this strange habit of always parking in the same space, so I'd remember where I parked my car, but it was blocks away from the arena. And by the time the show was over, there was a crowd of people around our car, and I remember feeling like it wasn't the safest thing in the world. So I told Nikki just to hang out. I'm going to run ahead and grab the car and come pick her up. I jog ahead 3 steps, and I kid you not, my keys fell out of my pocket, and I saw my Peter Criss Psycho Circus keychain do the slow motion drop down a grate, into into the cellar,
I do remember that
under the
story.
streets of Portland, and I had to basically lay there and put my arm down and try to fish that thing. I eventually got it. We did get in the car and get home. It didn't take until 5:30 in the morning, but yeah, your story kind of reminded me of that
Yeah,
one.
no, yeah, I forgot that, but I do remember you telling me that story. Was there an issue with the crowd around your car?
And by the time I got there, it had dissipated. No, so
Okay.
it was all good. Yeah.
So they didn't like steal your tires or your catalytic converter or anything? Everything was all
Nope.
right? Okay,
No, no,
good.
no. It was a couple of years
Okay,
before the whole catalytic converter thing happened in Portland.
good. Okay, good. So yeah, that was um my last time seeing Kiss, and Kiss did come through Wisconsin a couple more times. After that, they did do another Milwaukee, despite the fact that I thought that they said that every city was only going to get one show
Sure, they did.
on that tour. I'm pretty sure they said that,
Oh, they
but
totally did. They
Yeah.
totally did.
But they did come through Milwaukee one more time. I didn't go because I was cool with the experience that I had at the last show being the last time I saw them. I kind of made my peace with that. And then they came through Wisconsin one more time to Crandon, Crandon, Wisconsin, way up north. Um,
I lived in Wisconsin. I never heard of it.
yeah, it's one of the North Woods towns up there. And I was wondering, I saw that they were coming through. This was just a few years ago, towards the end of the tour. And I was like, what the fuck are they doing coming to Crandon, Wisconsin? And then I realized that was, um, oh, I forget what they call it, but it's like a brush run. And um, it's like the biggest, like, it's like the world championship off-roading, like
Mm.
the World Off-Roading Championships or something that are held up there in this Crandon Brush Run, and it, they this event gets like 60,000 visitors. So
Did
of course
anybody
Gene's gonna hear
off-road?
that. I not that I'm aware of, but I mean maybe they could have taken that Gene Simmons VW Bug
That's what I'm thinking.
off-roading.
Off-road
Yeah,
the
yeah.
bug.
But yeah, as soon as I heard that event draws like 60 to 75,000 people, I'm like, oh, okay, so Gene saw some cha-ching and they booked an extra show, made a detour to fucking Crandon, Wisconsin.
I just wonder if there were Crandon shirts. And probably a conversation for another time, but this tour also gave us two different pay-per-views. You and I watched both of them together over the
Uh-huh.
Zoom machine, so probably worth a conversation there. Again, like these two shows, I think one of them was quite good, the other one not so much. But
Definitely.
that's conversation for another time. Speaking of conversations for another time, if there's something that you'd like us to address or questions you have, lots of great ways to get in touch with us and send us a love letter.
Yep, you can see us on Instagram. I post some goofball pictures there once in a while. I'll try to post clips of the shows that are upcoming. And our Instagram is Rip and Destroy Podcast. And similarly, you can also drop us a line at Rip and Destroy Podcast at gmail.com. You can watch us on YouTube or listen to us on Spotify. And that's all we got right now.
New episodes on the 15th and 30th, just like payday. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Cheers.
Kill the power, Phil. Kill the power.